Cloud computing is the latest buzzword in the IT sector, and cloud is now what we call the new normal. It's no longer an afterthought. Today, it has become a critical element in the businesses and changed the way how IT solutions are delivered. We use cloud in our day to day life too, even if we don't realize it. For example, when we update our Facebook status or when we use net banking, we are into the cloud. Cloud computing is taking the tech world on the another level. So is the need to learn cloud computing. Therefore, we are back with another video where we will discuss about cloud computing and learn its fundamentals. But before starting, let's look at the agenda for our today video. First of all, we will start by understanding what is traditional architecture and then we will discuss the problem associated with this. Because to find any solution, we must know the problem first. Then we will go and talk about cloud computing and how it came into existence. Further, we will discuss characteristics of cloud computing and the various benefits offered by cloud computing. And finally, we will look into the cloud service model and cloud deployment model. So, without any further ado, let's get started.
So, what actually cloud is and how things used to work when there was no cloud. As you are aware, that cloud is a new technology, that it is being people are migrating toward clouds. There are a lot of job opportunities coming in the market. There is a lot of boom boost in the market relevant to the cloud, related to the cloud. But before cloud, how things used to operate and what change cloud has brought into the world of the corporate, that is what we are going to understand. So basically, when we were actually having our own traditional architecture, we usually call it as on premise infrastructure. So when I say traditional architecture, I call it as on premise data center. Usually whenever there is a company, whether a company related to pharma, whether a company related to garment industry, whether a company related to retail, FMCG, whichever company you name, they all have a lot of data to store and to share. They have a lot of data to store and to share. And this data storing and sharing has to happen in a secure way. I cannot make my data open. So, what companies used to do is they used to create dedicated infrastructure, or you can say dedicated, you can call them as dedicated specialized rooms, which they used to call as data centers. So, company used to create data centers in their on premise environment, and they used to keep servers and storages inside it, and then a lot of infrastructure to protect them, to enable them to get shared among multiple people. A lot of infrastructure was required. So there was a huge room capacity which was required. There was a lot of investment upfront which was required when we are working in an traditional architecture. Okay, but the problems apart from this room requirement and the space requirement and the amount of money, there are other drawbacks also which were there when we were having an on premise infrastructure. So what all those were, first of all, like suppose say, as I have told you, that we need to have a big room. So obviously either we will be purchasing that particular room, or we will be paying that rent for that room. So we are actually paying the rent for the space where we can keep our devices, which is not the case with cloud. Because in cloud, you are actually not keeping your infrastructure with you. It is the cloud service provider who is keeping the infrastructure at their data centers. So paying the rent was one of the problem that before cloud was being faced by the people. Just imagine a metro city where we need to hire a place for a team of 50 people. Now we need a space for these people to sit, to collaborate, but I need a special dedicated room also to keep my infrastructure. And that cost adds up to my monthly expenditure that I am doing. Either I will purchase it upfront, so I have to invest a lot in the beginning, or otherwise I will decide that okay, I will rent a place and I'll pay monthly rent. In both the cases, my money is going to get invested on that particular place where actually I'm not going to make my people work. I'll be just keeping certain devices from where I have to retrieve and store my data. So that was actually a big problem that was there. So huge amount of money was going into that with, for the business owners, that was a huge concern thing, a matter thing which was there. Apart from that, this particular room inside which all your critical data is kept, obviously it has to be as per the standards. You cannot just keep your data which is very critical to your company in just another room. You need to have a proper infrastructure like power supply. So the power supply cannot be one. You need to have multiple power supply. In the world of IT, we call it as redundant power supply. When I say redundant, that means what? Redundant means if one fails, another will take over. So I need redundant power supply. So if one company, one power supply provider fails to provide me power supply at a certain point of time, I cannot afford that my data will become unavailable and my team 50, 100,000, 5,000 people sitting in my company are sitting idle. So that is a big loss to a business owner. So we cannot afford that. So we used to keep redundant power supply. Now because these devices which were kept in that particular room are continuously being used by multiple people, they are being operated. So there is lot of heat which is created by those devices. So we need proper cooling mechanism, and these cooling systems are required to be properly monitored whether the cooling is happening or not. So for that, monitoring systems has to be installed. Then maintenance of these power, cooling, and security system and the devices which we are actually using to store our data was also costing the business owners. So instead of them being able to focus on their actual business, they were actually paying a lot of rent. They are paying their money for power supply redundancy, cooling infrastructure, monitoring that cooling infrastructure, fire monitoring system, smoke monitoring system, maintenance of those devices, and of course the security of that particular infrastructure and that place, because that data center room was a highly critical area. Everyone is not allowed to enter that, because if a person who is, mischievous kind of person, notorious person, he went inside the data center and did something wrong over there, it could cost loss of business hours to the company. So they used to keep the rooms very secure. So those security mechanisms has to be installed, proper card opening, CCTV monitoring, recording, logging, a lot of things were required at the traditional architecture. And then if suppose, say for an instance, there is some kind of device failure happens in your data center that we are talking about, it takes a lot of time to replace that particular item. Why? Because there are a lot of teams which are involved actually. So suppose I want to change a device inside the data center, I need to involve that particular hardware team who is going to do the replacement. I need to involve the security team, because he will make sure that the device which is being replaced is not hampering the other devices. I need to involve my administration team, that is admin team, so as to get the proper approvals and all. So lot of interaction between multiple teams were required, which was actually very time consuming, which takes a lot of man hour got consumed while you need to replace something in your data center. And moreover, the hardwares are frequently required to get replaced. It's not so that if the device fails then only one has to replace it. How frequently do we replace our mobile phones? Like I use it for 1.5 year, not more than that. Some people use it for 2 years, some people use it for 3 years, but then 3 years is maximum. People are using their mobile phones, they change it. So this particular device which we are using for communication purpose only, which is not at all a production device, we change it because in the market new models are available which are giving us better services. So you can imagine that the devices which are being used in the data center must also will get innovated across the time period. So when whatever device or whatever technology for your data center you purchased today will become obsolete after 5 years. That is the maximum life of a in IT infrastructure that we are talking about. When I say IT, information technology, IT stands for information technology. So in a data center, the devices that we install within a span of 5 years, that technology becomes obsolete. Why? Because a new improved technology comes into the market which is giving better services. So obviously I will also want my customer to enjoy those better services. So for that I may need to replace the hardware. So it becomes a repeated activity for me to replace the hardwares. I cannot avoid it. And it was always very time consuming. I need to work overnights to do that, and a lot of teams are required to collaborate with each other. So this was another problem with when we were working with traditional data centers. Apart from these three, one, two, three, another problem that we were facing is we need to hire a team which will work 24 by 7 so as to monitor my so called data center. Why? Because the uptime is always required. Suppose say I'm an owner of an MNC. My clients are across the globe. So I cannot think that okay, now it's night over here in my part of the globe. So I am sleeping. Everybody won't be sleeping. So some part of the globe are now morning. It's morning for them, and probably they are using my services. So I cannot make it like that. Like when like morning 9 to evening 5 p.m. I am working. Till that time my devices are being supported, being monitored, being addressed about the issues. And when my office is closed, if any client faces any problem, I am not responsible. I cannot say that. Being a business owner, we cannot say that. Okay, so the business owners used to think about that there should be a 24 by 7 team. 24 means 24 hours. When I say 24/7, it means 24 hours 7 days a week. I need a team. That means every time, every minute, every second, I need a team who is monitoring my infrastructure. And if there is any issue, the team will be immediately acting on that and resolving the issue so that the impact can be minimized. So we need to hire the team for that. Obviously, it will give me additional cost for that. And then, after doing all these things, hiring a 24 by 7 team, paying the rent, investing in the power supply, cooling, maintenance, thinking about the redundancy that I talked about, that means double things for every particular service, double power supply, double cooling systems, maintenance, double devices, everything. And one fine day, there was an earthquake at that place where I have created my data center. Ta-da, everything is gone. So those kind of disasters, so we need to deal with those disasters. Probably there was a fire broke in the building. God forbid, it should not happen to anybody. But then you have to, prepare for the worst in real life also, and in the corporate also. You always have to prepare for the worst. So if this happens, then what will we do? So that is known as disaster management. So we have to create disaster recovery sites. Very important. We have to create disaster recovery sites so that we can manage the disasters. And for that, guys, what we have to do is, as a company, I have a data center, everything full-fledged data center created at location A. I need to create a full-fledged data center at location B, which is never used unless and until there is a earthquake at my place, there is a power shutdown at my place, there was a tsunami at my place, or there was a fire at my place. So I'm not going to use this B site anytime. Only if any such unfortunate event occur, then I will be using that particular site location. But then I have to invest the same amount of money as much I have invested in my site A. And that was a, I can say, ridiculous thing a business owner has to do. But and then it was a mandatory part also. You cannot survive with that, without that. You cannot just put your business at risk by not investing and not creating the disaster recovery site. So this is what you have to deal with. You have to create. So that was another problem that the companies were facing with the traditional architecture. And then, yes, this particular point that we have thought about, scaling. Okay, so the scaling was limited. When I say scaling, that means what? So suppose that today I have a load of 50 people attending, or you can say visiting my website. One fine day, I did something so good to my website, or have launched such a very beautiful offer, that these 50 people who were at hitting my website on daily basis. Now instead of this 50, 500 people hit my website on that particular day. when I have did something very great. Probably I make a deal with somebody, or I have launched some offer, or maybe my just overnight I got a publicity for something, and then people started hitting my website to check what all services do I provide. And that at that point of time where you can actually make money from that particular point, when suddenly more people are hitting at your website trying to understand what service do you provide. On that particular fine day, if your this server crashes, then what bad can happen more than this? So this is actually, I want my infrastructure to be scalable. Scalable means if there is more load on my server should be able to cater that larger load. And to cater that larger load, what I have to do has to be thought by the IT administrator, by the business continuity planning teams, the finance team has to be involved into it. So that has to be taken care. So scaling was very difficult with the traditional architecture. Why? Because I have purchased one device with certain capacity and have installed it in my data center. Now, on day one, when I know that the load on my server is 50 users hitting the website, I can plan myself to support load up to 100 users so as to think about the growth. But I cannot plan myself for 500 user, because then I have to invest also so much on my data center if I want to create an infrastructure to support those 500 users, right? So I cannot create a oversized infrastructure in my on premise data center. And then if I am required to do the scaling, then there are a lot of repeated round of meetings happening, like whether the current infrastructure, if I upscale it, whether it will be able to support, or do I need to replace the infrastructure. So a lot of things were there, so scaling was very limited. So if the load will increase, obviously up to a certain limit my current set of devices would be able to support it. But then if the load goes beyond that, then my company needs a revamp, and then again a huge cost is involved into that. So this was the all problems, you can say drawbacks related to the traditional architecture. So then if there is a problem, there is a solution. So the solution was, can we outsource this particular service of managing the data centers? Can somebody else do it, and I just focus on my business? The company owners used to business owners, or you can say the decision makers, the financial people, thought that instead of me doing all this headache, can anybody else do it for me? Can I outsource it? Can I externalize this particular thing? So this thought, this problem was picked up by the cloud service providers, and they came up with an idea of cloud computing. So the solution is my very fancy word, cloud computing, the one which is fascinating everyone across the globe. What is cloud computing? The cloud computing is the solution to it. Why? Because in this, actually, the servers, the storage, the database, networking components, tools which are required to monitor and manage them, the software, we don't keep them in our own data center. We don't keep it here in our own dedicated specialized room. What we do is, we take these services from the cloud computing service provider. So what do they do is, they create those specialized rooms, and we as the user access our resources over the internet. So what I have to do is, I just need a device, maybe a laptop, a desktop, a tablet, or a mobile phone, and from there I need an active internet connection. So I need an internet connection. Just with an internet connection, I will be able to access my servers, storage, databases that I have created in the cloud. Because cloud computing solution providers will be responsible for providing me this networking, so that I am able to access these things which I have created once in the cloud. So this is actually being outsourced to the cloud service providers. So the data centers, the purpose why we were actually creating the data centers, we were creating the data centers to keep our data, which is very critical to us, to store it, to secure it, and make it accessible. This was the purpose of making the data center, right? We should be able to store our data, secure it, and make it accessible to the users. To achieve this goal, we were actually creating the data centers, but then it was a very difficult task for us to manage. So what cloud service providers has done is, they said, you give away all these things to me, and then I will give you this particular ability where you can store your data on our data centers. You can make the right rules, policies on the security appliances that I am giving you. The cloud service provider is saying that, that I will be giving you the storage space. You can store your data. You can write good policies so that you can secure your data, so that your data is not lost. I will give you the services by which you can make your data highly available, so that you can keep multiple copies of your data. And I'll make sure that the data which you will be putting on me is accessible to you across the globe, from anywhere, any device. The cloud computing service providers gives you this particular flexibility by keeping your data in their data centers and giving you this service that we are talking about. This service, they are giving you it as a service. So just like we get an electricity bill, so do we care about how this electricity is being generated, how it is being stored, how it is being transmitted to my house so that I'm able to use it? I don't care about all these things. What I simply do is, I have a meter at my house, and the amount of electricity that I use inside my house, I pay for it, and I need to pay the monthly bill for the same. If I don't pay the bill, my services will be discontinued. If I keep on paying the bill, I don't have to worry all those management thing, that how the electricity is being created, whether by using coal, by whether by using water or XYZ, how it is being stored, how being transmitted. I don't have to care about all these things. So I am freed from the burden of the administrative tasks which are actually required to do when I have to manage my own data at my own data center. I'm freed from that with the help of cloud computing. This is what cloud computing is. With cloud computing, companies gets enabled to consume the compute resource. When I say compute, that means the servers. Whenever you buy a PC, what do you see? Whenever you buy a PC, what do we see in a PC? We see what kind of processor that particular PC or laptop is having, how much amount of RAM the device is having, so that the speed of the device can be defined, how much storage my laptop is having. We see these three things in specific, right? The GPU, CPU, we see that only. So this is what the compute is. The same thing is for the servers also. So with this, with enablement of the cloud computing, companies consume the compute resources such as server, storage, or applications as a utility, just like a water and an electricity. Rather than having to build up the whole infrastructure to maintain those computing resources, companies do what? They take these services on rent from the cloud service providers. When you compare the services of being provided to you by cloud, some of the services that you will feel that they are expensive, but if you see it all together, cloud is a cheaper solution to manage your IT infrastructure. You cannot compare. There are 7 tasks being done by a vendor for you, and the seventh task is, for that you need to pay more as compared to your on premise. But for what about the rest 6? So if you compare the cost all together, it is reduced down, and that is the reason the companies are adopting the cloud. Okay, so don't worry about that. If you think about an overall approach, the holistic approach, how much the company is saving by going into the cloud, you will definitely find out good about it, that the services that you get in cloud are much more cost effective as compared to do the same thing in an on premise infrastructure. So now we have understood what cloud is, what were the difficulties we were facing prior to the cloud, and then with the advent of cloud, what are actually we are going to get. is we are supposed to understand now. So we'll be getting an on demand self service. That means, suppose say if you want to provision a server in the cloud, you don't need to go and purchase a server, place a purchase order to a vendor, interact with him, when am I going to get my server. All those things are not required to be done. It is an on demand self service, just like a supermarket. You go, you pick up the items, you add it to your cart, pay for it, and you are done. This is how quick the cloud services are. When we will do the practicals, you will feel like as if you are in a supermarket of IT infrastructure. And then broad network access, that means, as I have explained you just need a active internet connection, and you can access your data from anywhere and from any device. So that means broad network access is another benefit that you're going to achieve if you're planning to migrate to the cloud, whether it is an AWS cloud, GCP, Azure, doesn't makes any difference. But the thing is that by moving to the cloud, you'll be getting an on demand self service, broad network access, resource pooling. And when we are doing resource pooling, obviously it is going to reduce the cost. When we are doing pooling on the taxi, why do we do that? To save the cost. The taxi is going from A location to B location. It is carrying only single person. The single person is paying $100 for that. And if the thing is being shared by four people, so it will be 25, 25, 25 for everyone. So obviously it becomes more cost effective for the people. So it is actually the resource pooling, the same like we are pooling a taxi and being shared by multiple people. Here also we will be having a resource which will be shared in a right way by multiple people, so that it is cost effective for all the people who are sharing that particular thing. So the resource pooling can be achieved from here. Rapid elasticity, as I have told you, the systems were not scalable when it was an on premise environment. Why? Because they were not elastic in nature. I was not able to scale up my services because I have a server which is fixed in size. I cannot enhance the size of the server immediately when I require the scalability to happen. But in cloud, the servers are elastic in nature. I can increase the compute on my devices or reduce the compute on my devices whenever required. I can grow it up, I can scale it down. So it is elastic in nature, and thus it supports scalability. So the devices in cloud are elastic in nature, and then the service is measured. As I have told you, we have a meter for electricity. Same ways, we have a meter for our cloud resources that we are being going to use, which is known as billing dashboard. Very important portion of a cloud architect. The people have to be very focused on reducing the charges on that billing dashboard. So the cloud architect task is to provide the right solution, rightly performing solution at a lowest cost. So that billing dashboard is very critical to people like us who are architecting the solution on the cloud. So the services are completely measurable. You will be able to see what you are using, how much you are using, and for what you are paying what. So it is a completely measurable service. So these are the basic characteristics which we will get with the cloud. And then benefits. So these are the characteristics that we get, and then the benefits that we get are highly available, flexible, reduced infrastructure cost, higher security, backup and disaster recovery, and no location constraint. So out of this, I believe you must have understood backup and disaster recovery. What does this term means? But then how cloud helps me into doing that? See, I have told you that companies used to create a site A, which was their primary functional site. If there is an earthquake happening at this site, then another site which is known as my disaster recovery site will get active, and the users who are working or using my services will be hitting my DR site. So there was a huge expenditure being done by the companies to do this disaster management for them. But with cloud, this backup and disaster recovery becomes very easy. Why? Because we have multiple locations across the globe. So when I say multiple location, that means I have multiple data centers of Amazon across the globe. And then it's my choice. I can create one copy of my server in one of the data center of Amazon. another copy of my server in another data center of Amazon, and then I will declare it as primary. And then if the primary is down, then this DR server will be activated. I don't have to invest on that whole data center and everything over there. I don't have to do that. I'll just keep my services in two data centers of Amazon. And I achieve this disaster recovery. So simple. I don't have to worry much about. I can keep the backups of my file because there is a lot of storage available in the cloud in different format. So there are a lot of options which are available. And these options are, you don't have to buy the hardwares. You just have to allocate memory for yourself. And in some cases, I will not even allocate the memory. If I keep the data, that memory will get allocated to me. And then I have to pay for the amount of data that I have stored. If I add up something more to it, my storage space will automatically get expanded. And then I have to pay that prorated charges for the expanded data location that I'm using. So that flexible, this particular services. So I can have the data backups done very easily in cloud. This is a very flexible service. As I have told you, the storage can be scaled, the servers can be are elastic in nature, it can grow up and can grow down. So this is a very flexible service. And then the beauty is that I don't have to pay anything upfront. Nothing has to be paid upfront. I'll be paying a monthly bill at the end of the month. So I can earn throughout the month, and from my earning, a part can be paid as a rent to the cloud service provider. Isn't it beautiful? So I don't need a lot of upfront investment into it. Higher security because multiple customers are there. Obviously, they need to maintain their reputation across the globe. So they follow security compliances being offered and set by the governments of various countries. So obviously this particular infrastructure which is there in the cloud is highly secure. People have this particular myth that the cloud is not secure, but in our upcoming sessions we will be discussing about how secure cloud is as compared to the on-premise infrastructure. So just mark my words, it is an highly secure environment where we are entering into. My data that I'm keeping, it's an highly secure environment. And then I don't have any location constraint. Today, I am a company who has an office in India. And fortunately, my business grew and I got a order from US, and I need to open up a branch over there. I need my people, my customers are there, my servers need to be located in US. What I have to do is I just have to make my servers in the data center of Amazon. So we have understood how the data centers used to operate when there were things on premise. Like that means the data centers, when they were created in the own infrastructure of a company, then how the things used to operate. So what used to happen was everything was done by the company itself. The networking portion, the storage, server, virtualization, operating system management, middleware, runtime dependencies to be installed, to be updated, the data to be used by the applications. Everything was a work of a IT person in a company, which used to be very cumbersome task, and a lot of investment was required. A lot of people were required to do that. So that was known as traditional on-premise infrastructure. And then the thought of outsourcing this particular infrastructure came into mind, which is actually nothing but the cloud services. Okay. So the cloud services were provided by multiple vendors. So today we are discussing about AWS. There is a slide where we are comparing the rest of the cloud service providers also. So this was actually how the things used to work before. With the advent of cloud has given you three options to select from. Cloud gave you an option called as infrastructure as a service, which is in short known as IaaS. Second option was platform as a service, which in short was known as PaaS. And the third one was software as a service, which in short was known as SaaS. So people call it as PaaS SaaS. People call it as in short as PaaS SaaS. The full form is infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service. And this classification was basically done on the basis of the amount of service that has to be delivered by AWS or by the cloud service provider. The amount of service. Now, this was the whole stack of tasks that we used to do when there was no cloud. So everything was done by the customer itself, the IT team of the customer. But as the cloud came, certain parts of these responsibilities were outsourced. And the amount of outsourcing that was being done, based on that, there were three classifications. So when we opt for an infrastructure as a service, we are basically leveraging, or we are basically outsourcing the task of networking, storage, server, and virtualization to the cloud service provider. We are outsourcing it to the cloud service provider. In our case, we are outsourcing it to AWS. That means AWS will take care of our servers, the storage which is attached to our servers, and how they are connected to the network. That all thing, how it is provided in a virtualized manner to us, has been taken care by AWS, the cloud service provider. Then our responsibility would be, as the customers of the cloud service provider, to install a operating system on the given hardware, install the dependencies, ins uh, copy the data, install the application, and then manage all these also. So that was a responsibility of the client. So when we are leveraging half of the services by AWS and half of the stack is being maintained by us, in that situation, we are actually taking the service as infrastructure as a service. Because you see over here, the infrastructure part, the hardware part, has been given to AWS, and the software component, the operating system component, has been taken care by the client himself still. So in this situation, the kind of service that we get is known as infrastructure as a service. Okay. Then the second model that is offered by the cloud service providers is that we take some more services from the cloud service providers. So apart from the one which was earlier taken by the cloud service provider, we also handed over the responsibilities of operating system, middleware, and runtime also to the cloud service provider. And we said that we will be only taking care of the data which is relevant to our application, and that will be the only responsibility of client, that is us, and rest will be taken care by cloud service provider. So you can opt for, like, if you have a team who can manage all these things, so you can opt for infrastructure as a service. But if you are a developer and you do not know how the infrastructure works, how the operating system, middleware, and runtime dependencies to be installed and managed, then you can take platform as a service from AWS. AWS is giving this particular service in many different forms. We will be discussing about them, like Atul, as he was saying, that we will touch databases a bit. So in that, we will study a service called RDS, Relational Database Service, which is a PaaS kind of service by AWS. So we will be going into that. And the third type of service that is provided by cloud service providers to us is software as a service, and the short form is SaaS. Okay, let me clean my screen. So the third one is software as a service, in which what we basically do, we hand over all the responsibilities to the cloud service provider, and we only do what? We just create an account on that particular application, just like we do it for Facebook, just like we do it for YouTube. So we never care about how YouTube is basically helping you to stream the videos across the globe, how your data is being preserved in the cloud of YouTube. Why on one fine day you never hear back from YouTube saying, boss, on the hard disk where I have kept your video, and that hard disk has been crashed and your video is now no longer available with me. It never happens. Why it never happens? Because the data has been backed up properly by by YouTube. It keep multiple copies of your data that you upload on YouTube. It makes sure that the data is being available across the globe. If from any part of the world, if somebody tries to access your video, it is accessible. And in fact, if your video goes viral, then the resources which are required for that viral set of requests which are coming onto your video to get streamed are also handled by YouTube. So everything, like how it is connected, where it is stored, everything is taken care by the software as a service provider, which in our case, as an example, we were discussing about YouTube. Similar kind of services are being offered by AWS also, where AWS takes care of everything. You just create your account on that particular application and start operating. So these are the three various models which are available with the cloud service providers to use. So we say the classification of the cloud based on the service model. So here it is divided into three categories: infrastructure as a service, where we are outsourcing half of the stack to AWS; platform as a service, where we are outsourcing network, server, storage, virtualization, OS, and middleware to AWS or to the cloud service provider, and are managing data and applications only. And in the third option, that is software as a service, we are outsourcing everything and we are just creating our account on the application and we are doing our task on that. Then rest everything is taken care by the cloud service provider. So this is what your infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service is. Most of the cloud service providers which are there in the market are providing this as a service, basically, that is infrastructure as a service. So when we say infrastructure as a service, that means what? You remember we have discussed about creating a EC2 instance in cloud. So when I say EC2 instance, it is nothing but creating a virtual machine in the cloud. So when I create a virtual machine in the cloud, that is a server in the cloud, I am taking the infrastructure, that is the server, the storage, how it is connected. So that particular part I'm taking from the cloud. So that is known as infrastructure as a service. So if you take up a EC2 instance in a cloud and attach a storage to it, it is known as infrastructure as a service. The second, that is platform as a service. Amazon gives you the example for that is Elastic Beanstalk service in AWS, which gives you this particular platform as a service. And also there is one called RDS, Relational Database Service, and others are also there, but these are the two most commonly used services of AWS, which are in the form of PaaS, because here you don't have to worry about the whole stack of infrastructure plus the operating system and the middlewares. It is taken care by Amazon. You just give your application as a developer that this is my application to be hosted in the cloud, and rest everything, launching the server, connecting it to the network, making it available to the user, will be taken care by cloud service provider, that is AWS. The third, there are so many examples for the same, and we have been using these even before we realized that we are using the cloud as a service. Okay, so from for the people of my age, so if we talk about Orkut, the old application, old version of Facebook. So basically it's not Facebook, but Facebook kind of application was there with the name Orkut. So that was also platform as a service. Oh, sorry, software as a service. Even before that, if we talk about our email accounts, the Yahoo, the America Online email accounts, the Gmail accounts, all these are what? They are software as a service provider. The G Suite that we are more commonly known as the Google Workspace, which was previously known as G Suite, where we used to get the all these things which are related to Google, the email service, the domain name and all. So that is Dropbox, Salesforce, just like the go-to meetings that we are using for generating the meetings and doing web conferences and all. Similarly, Cisco WebEx is there, SAP Concur, go to meeting, all these are what? They are software as a service, and this was there in the market even before the so called cloud computing term was evolved. So this was there in the market. When the software as a service came to the corporate world, then all these classifications come up: infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service. And people started to know that cloud computing is a domain where we can make our careers into. Okay, so these are the three things: software as a service, platform as a service, and infrastructure as a service. And these are what? Classification of the cloud based on the service model. We first must understand the another way of classification. As we have understood the classification based on the service model, and the three types of classification that we have seen was infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service. So these were the three types of classifications that we have seen based on the service model. Similarly, based on the deployment model also, there is a classification which is there in the cloud. So when I say deployment model, that means what? The way I deploy the cloud, the way I choose how my infrastructure will be positioned in the cloud is known as the deployment model. So the deployment model, we have got these three categories which are there: public cloud, hybrid cloud, and private cloud. First and foremost, let's understand what the public private cloud means to us. So suppose, say, you have a scenario like whatever we are doing on our data centers, it is actually we have some data which has to be secured and which has to be shared to the other people. This is what we do from the data centers. Now, if the data that has to be secured and still to be shared is very critical to you, and you don't afford or you cannot afford that data to be there on the public clouds, so what will you do is you will create your own data center and will ask Amazon to manage it for you. So there will be everything created by AWS, but it will be in your premises. It will be on your premise, but it won't be managed by you. It will be managed by AWS. So the whole stack, the network, the servers, the storage, the VMs, the operating system, middlewares, runtimes, data, application, the whole stack will be there in your data center, and it will be actually accessed only by you, nobody else. So when I say you as a customer, so only one single customer will have access to the data center that is created by Amazon. Now there are two ways. One, it can be created in your own premise, or it can be created at the place of Amazon also. But the entry to this particular data center via the online methods will be only allowed to the selected user. So the single user who has demanded for this private cloud, the authenticated users of that particular customer will be only allowed to enter into the cloud and will be able to access the resources which are inside the cloud. Obviously, because it is for the single user, the amount of money that client or the customer have to spend will be more. But then it works because the data that you will be storing in these data centers are very critical to you. Like one of the example, the live example for the same is the government of US is on AWS cloud. I will show you today when we will go to study the infrastructure of AWS, how it is spread and is created. I'll show you the government cloud is there in AWS infrastructure. But then that particular cloud is a private cloud, and we are not able to create or access any infrastructure or any resource inside that particular cloud. So such kind of deployments of cloud where everything is for a selected set of users, authenticated user who belongs to a single customer, are is this particular deployment is known as private cloud deployment. So it is as good as creating your own data center but being managed by AWS. Okay, so such kind of deployment is known as private cloud. Now, another type of deployment that is there available is public cloud. So if your data is not that critical as the private cloud users were, so what you can do is you can share a pool of resources. Just like you share a cab, if you share a cab, like suppose say if you and four other people are going from destination A to destination B, if you hire a dedicated cab, obviously the charges that you are required to pay will be more. But if you share a cab, the charges will be shared by multiple people, and thus you end up paying less cost for the same resource. Okay, so that is what a public cloud is. Amazon has created public cloud, which actually allows you to share a pool of resources available with the cloud service provider. And there, what happens? Multiple people will be sharing the particular data center which is created by AWS. So we will be seeing the regions, the availability zones in the AWS infrastructure, and those regions, those availability zones that we will be seeing, anyone can go inside with a valid AWS account and can create a server over there. So this is what a public cloud deployment is, available for anyone over the public internet. This is what your public cloud is. Obviously, bit less secure than as compared to the private cloud, but if you do a comparison between the cost and the security, and it is good to go with your organization, so you can go for the public clouds also. Like for an example, if I'll tell you, suppose say if I want to create a machine, like I want to learn cloud, I will create a free tier account, the one which we have guided you in the last session, and it's even available on our YouTube channel, where you can access the particular this particular video of creating a free tier account by going on to this link. This is http://k21academy.com/AWSSA15. So by going on to this particular link, you will be able to see how to create a free tier account in the cloud. We have discussed about this particular in the last session. So if you create a free tier account where you can practice the things, and then at that point, you don't need a private cloud at all. What all you need is a public cloud. Do the practice of the services, understand what services are being provided by AWS, and you are done with that. So this is what the public cloud is. Another use, if I tell you, so suppose say you have launched a particular website. Let's discuss about a bank deployment. Okay, the general website of a bank, which is actually showcasing what all are the different types of accounts which are there with the bank, what are the interest rates being offered, what are the various saving plans which are available with the bank. All those information which is provided on that particular website should be open to the public world. Obviously they should be open to the public world, and the security of the content which is over there on that website is not as critical to be kept on the private cloud and spend so much money on it. So what bank can do is they can put it on the public cloud, and as and when the person is required to log into his account, so that is a portion where the criticality comes into the picture. So what will bank do? The infrastructure which is not critical to them will be kept on the public cloud, and the data and the information which is very critical to them will be kept on the private cloud. And then there will be a secure bridge that can be created between the private and the public cloud, so that the users who are from the public cloud, whenever they are entering into the private cloud area of the bank, they will be authenticated with the username and the password. Then only they can enter and access the resources which are lying inside. So such kind of deployments are known as hybrid cloud deployments, where some of the infrastructure is there on the public cloud, some of the infrastructure is there on the private cloud, and then there is a secure bridge between these two clouds, so that the authenticated users can enter into this private region. So that is what is known as cloud deployment Three models: public, hybrid, and private. Private, public, and hybrid. Then there are some other terminologies also which are popular in the market, which is called as multi-cloud. So in multi-cloud, what will happen? Multiple cloud service providers will come into picture. So some of your infrastructure is on AWS and some of your infrastructure is on Azure, the other cloud service provider, Microsoft Azure. And then you have a channel between, or you can say a secure channel between the resources between AWS and Azure. So you can access the resources of AWS from the resources of Azure and vice versa. This is known as multi-cloud. And maybe you have an on-premise data center also. So this will be your on-premise data center. So what will happen? There will be a channel between the AWS. There will be a connectivity to the Azure. So whenever required, I can access from all these three, the infrastructure and the resources which are there. So such kind of deployment is known as multi-cloud deployment. So based on the deployment model, based on the positioning of the infrastructure that you are creating in the cloud can be classified into public cloud, private cloud, hybrid cloud, multi-cloud. So these are the various options which are there.
If you are looking to start your career in cloud domain, we provide a free class on AWS Solution Architect which covers the basics of cloud computing like service models including infrastructure as a service, software as a service and platform as a service model. We also cover basics of AWS and concepts needed to clear the Solution Architect certification. Register for free class at k21academy.com/AWSSA02. If Azure is your go-to cloud vendor, we have a free class for Microsoft Azure Solution Architect 2, which walk you through from beginner to expert level in cloud with Azure. Register for free class at k21academy.com/AzureSA02. We can never keep Google out of the race. And if you are a GCP person, register for free class at k21academy.com/GCPPro02. We also provide a beginner friendly free class for Oracle Cloud Infrastructure Architect, which clears all doubts and get familiar with the cloud concept in Oracle. You can register for our free class at k21academy.com/OCI02.